He wasn't just someone I loved. He was the one place in the world where I felt completely safe. The one person I trusted without hesitation. The one voice that could calm every storm inside me. When life got heavy, I ran to him. When my heart felt tired, he held it gently. When everything around me fell apart, he was the only thing that stayed standing. At least, that's what I believed. People always warn you about strangers. They warn you about dangers in the dark. They warn you about the things that look scary. But no one warns you about the person who feels like home. No one warns you that the arms you run to can one day become the arms you fear. No one warns you that the same voice that once healed you can later break you in ways you never imagined. He became my safe place until the day he became the reason I couldn't feel safe anywhere. And the moment I realized the truth was the moment my entire world changed forever. In the beginning, he felt like safety in human form. I didn't fall for him because he was charming or handsome or perfect. I fell because he made the world feel softer. I fell because when he spoke, my anxious thoughts went quiet. I fell because he listened in a way no one ever had. And slowly, without even realizing it, I began to breathe through him instead of myself. He arrived in my life during a time when everything felt fragile. I had just walked away from a long, exhausting chapter, one filled with disappointments, broken promises, and people who didn't know how to stay. I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't ready for anything. I was simply trying to survive my own thoughts. But then he appeared, and he didn't push, he didn't rush, he didn't force his way in. He simply sat beside my pain and waited for me to trust him. He learned the rhythm of my silence. He noticed the way my breathing changed when I was overwhelmed. He knew when to hold me and when to let me be. He remembered the small things, my favorite tea, the songs that calmed me, the way I hated bright lights in the morning. He noticed the parts of me others had overlooked, and slowly, I began to feel safe. Not safe in the obvious way, but safe in the way a lost child feels when they finally see a familiar face in a crowd. Safe in the way your shoulders relax without you realizing it. Safe in the way you stop expecting something bad to happen every time you start to feel happy. I didn't know that safety could be temporary. I didn't know that comfort could have an expiration date, because the people who become your safe place are the ones you hand the most vulnerable parts of yourself to. And if they ever choose to turn away, they carry pieces of you with them, pieces you can never get back. He was gentle at first, too gentle. The kind of gentle that makes you think he could never hurt you. The kind of gentle that feels like a promise. He would check on me throughout the day, make sure I ate, make sure I slept, make sure I didn't disappear inside my own head. "You're safe with me," he whispered once, brushing a strand of hair from my face. And I believed him for a long time. I believed him. We built routines that felt like rituals. Night calls that melted into sleep. Morning texts that made the day feel lighter. Hours spent talking about life, fears, dreams, and all the things we didn't tell anyone else. I told him secrets I had never said out loud. I opened windows to memories I had boarded shut years ago, and he held them carefully. Or so I thought. The shift didn't happen suddenly. It arrived slowly, like a quiet change in weather. A colder wind, a longer pause, a different tone. He didn't stop loving me. He just stopped loving me the way he used to. His messages became shorter. His excuses became longer. His patience thinned. His eyes drifted elsewhere. The first time I felt fear around him was subtle. We were having a small disagreement, nothing serious. But something in his voice changed. Something sharp, something unfamiliar. It wasn't anger. It was power. A kind of power he hadn't shown before. A kind of power that told me he knew exactly how much I depended on him. And the worst part? He liked it. After that, he began crossing lines in ways that were so small I convinced myself they didn't matter. He would interrupt me when I spoke, correct my memories, question my feelings. He started telling me which friends I should avoid, which habits I should change, which dreams were unrealistic, all under the disguise of love. "I'm just trying to protect you," he would say. But protection shouldn't feel like control, and love shouldn't feel like permission. Still, I made excuses. Because people don't just become your safe place, they become your anchor, your world, your emotional home. And when your home starts to shake, you don't run. You try to repair it. You try to believe it's just temporary. You try to believe the person you loved is still there, buried somewhere beneath the version standing in front of you now. The first real crack appeared on a night I will never forget. We were talking, or at least trying to. I was upset about something that had happened earlier. I wanted comfort. I wanted understanding. But instead, he sighed loudly, rolled his eyes, and said, "Why do you always have to make everything about you?" My heart dropped. Not because of the words, but because of the coldness in his voice. The same voice that once soothed my pain now blamed me for having it. The same voice that once made me feel safe now made me feel small. I apologized instinctively, desperately, because I didn't want to upset him. Because I didn't want to lose him. Because I didn't know how to function without the man who once made me feel protected. And he smiled when I apologized. Not kindly, not lovingly, but triumphantly. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. He didn't want to be my safe place anymore. He wanted to be the place I couldn't escape. Over the next weeks, the change accelerated. He stopped checking in on me. He stopped noticing when I cried. He stopped caring when I went quiet. But he became more alert when I seemed strong. More irritated when I made decisions on my own. More distant when I didn't seek his approval. My safety wasn't his priority anymore. My dependency was. He wanted me to need him. Not love him. He wanted control, not connection. And the worst part was knowing that he had waited. He had waited until I was fully attached, fully invested, fully vulnerable. He had waited until I trusted him more than I trusted myself, because only then, only when I felt safe, could he destroy me without warning. He became my comfort just long enough to become my cage. And I didn't even realize I was trapped until the day he crossed a line I couldn't ignore. The day the fear finally replaced the safety. The day the truth revealed itself. The day I understood what she meant when she said, "Be careful who you trust." Some people build your safe place just so they can be the ones who burn it down. I didn't notice the fear the first time it showed up. Fear never arrives as fear. It comes disguised as doubt, as confusion, as a tightening in your chest you can't explain. It appears in the silence after an argument, in the shift of someone's tone, in the way their eyes darken for a split second before they smile again. Fear doesn't warn you. It grows quietly, like a shadow you don't see until it's already wrapped around you. The moment he crossed the line wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't the kind of moment movies show. It was simple. Too simple. We were sitting in the car, arguing about something small, something that shouldn't have mattered. But his voice kept rising, sharp and firm, until suddenly he hit the steering wheel so hard the car shook. I froze. He didn't scream. He didn't get out. He didn't apologize. He just sat there breathing heavily, gripping the wheel like he was fighting with something inside him. And then he turned to me slowly, his eyes still burning with something I hadn't seen before. "See what you make me do," he whispered. A chill ran down my spine. Because he didn't apologize, he blamed me for his anger. He blamed me for losing control. He blamed me for his violence. I nodded quietly, trying to calm him down, trying to soothe him, trying to shrink myself so he wouldn't break more than the steering wheel. He relaxed eventually, but something in me didn't. Something inside me had cracked. That night, I replayed his words over and over. Again, "See what you make me do." It sounded like a warning, a promise, a shift in everything we once were. He didn't raise his hand on me. He didn't threaten me, but he didn't have to. Fear doesn't need bruises. Fear needs patterns. And the pattern had begun. The next weeks were filled with small moments that felt wrong in ways I couldn't explain. When I spent time with my friends, he called repeatedly, asking where I was, who I was with, why I wasn't answering quickly enough. When I talked to my family, he made comments about how they influenced me too much. When I said I wanted to focus on my work, he said I was too busy for our relationship. Every day, the safe place he had built for me shrank a little. Every day, the walls closed in. Every day, I felt myself losing pieces of the confidence he once helped me build. At first, he disguised his control as concern. "I just worrying about you. I just want what's best for you. You. No, I'm only trying to protect you." But protection shouldn't feel like surveillance. Love shouldn't feel like permission. And safety shouldn't feel like fear. One evening, he asked me to cancel plans with a friend because he felt ignored. I apologized. I canceled. I stayed home. I made dinner. I tried to make him feel loved. But later that night, while we were sitting together, he looked at me and said, "You wouldn't have stayed if you didn't know I was right." Double quotes, right. The word burn. It wasn't about love. It was about winning. About control. About power. He began checking my messages. Not openly, quietly. He would pick up my phone when I was in the shower. He would ask random questions that revealed he had read things I didn't show him. When I confronted him gently once, he said, "If you have nothing to hide, why does it matter?" He said it with a smile, a soft smile, a loving smile. But behind that smile was entitlement. Possession. An obsession with being in control. The fear grew. Not enough to leave him, but enough to silence myself. I started hiding my feelings. I walked on eggshells around him. I chose my words carefully. I smiled even when I wanted to cry. I avoided topics that might upset him. I stopped expressing needs, stopped asking questions, stopped being myself. Because being myself had become dangerous. People think fear only comes when someone yells or breaks things. But fear comes in quieter ways. It comes when someone's disappointment feels heavier than their affection. It comes when you start apologizing for things you didn't do. It comes when someone who once held your heart gently starts tightening their grip. The breaking point happened the night everything changed. We were supposed to watch a movie. I was tired, exhausted, actually, and I told him gently, "I just want to rest tonight." My voice wasn't rude. It wasn't dismissive. It was honest. But honesty is not welcome where control lives. His expression hardened instantly. His jaw clenched. His voice dropped to a cold whisper, "You don't get to dismiss me." Then he stood up and kicked the leg of the coffee table so suddenly that the entire thing tilted. Not broken, not destroyed, just enough to scare me. Just enough to send the message. My heart pounded in my chest. My hands shook. I could feel my throat closing, like my body was trying to disappear from him. He walked toward me slowly, his steps controlled, his face emotionless. He knelt down, cupped my face gently, and whispered, "Don't make me feel unwanted." Again, it was the gentleness that terrified me, not the anger, not the noise, not the violence, the gentleness, the softness that didn't match his actions, the quiet tone that carried a threat without raising its volume. I realized then that the man who once held me safely in his arms now held me like a fragile thing he wanted to control, not protect. After he fell asleep that night, I sat awake in the dark, listening to my own heartbeat. It was loud and steady, afraid. I stared at him as he slept peacefully beside me. How could the same person who healed me become the one I feared? How could the same hands that once wiped my tears now cause them? How could the same heart that once protected mine now crush it so easily? The truth settled inside me like cold water. He didn't change. He revealed himself. The safety I felt wasn't safety. It was strategy. He made me trust him. Then he used that trust to hold me in place. To mold me into dependency. To ensure I wouldn't leave. He didn't want a partner. He wanted control, disguised as love. And the worst part? I didn't know how to leave the place where I once felt safest. Because when your safe place becomes your fear, you don't run, you freeze, you question yourself, you blame yourself, you wonder if maybe he's right, maybe you're overreacting, maybe you're sensitive, maybe you're exhausted, maybe love is supposed to hurt. But deep down, beneath the fear and confusion, a small voice inside me whispered one truth I couldn't ignore. Love should never make you afraid. And once I heard that voice, there was no going back. Because fear isn't the end of love. Fear is the beginning of the truth. The truth didn't arrive like lightning. It didn't strike suddenly. It came slowly, quietly, creeping into my life like a whisper I tried to ignore. It came every time he raised his voice and then smiled a moment later. It came every time he controlled me and then called it love. It came every time I flinched at a sound, at a movement, at a silence he created. Fear was not an event, it was a pattern. And patterns are harder to escape than moments. The night everything finally changed, I wasn't expecting it. I was tired, drained, and emotionally numb from pretending everything was normal. We were having dinner together. I wasn't talking much. I kept my eyes on my plate. My hands were trembling slightly, though I tried hiding it. He noticed, but in the way a predator notices, not with concern, but with calculation. "Why are you so quiet?" he asked. I didn't answer immediately. I was afraid of the tone simmering beneath his words. I took a breath and said softly, "I'm just tired." He leaned back, staring at me with eyes that felt colder than winter. "Tired from what?" he asked, voice low. My heart thudded painfully. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to shrink. I wanted to tell him what he wanted to hear so he wouldn't break something, so he wouldn't break me. But lying felt heavier than the truth now. I swallowed hard and whispered, "Tired." From feeling scared, the silence that followed was suffocating. His jaw tightened. His eyes darkened. He set down his fork too slowly, too deliberately, scared. He repeated, "Of me." I didn't answer. Silence is an answer. He stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor, making my whole body flinch. He saw it. He noticed my reaction. And for a second, I saw something pass across his face, something between guilt and pride. Then he knelt beside me, grabbed my wrist firmly, and said, "I would never hurt you." But his grip tightened, his voice shook. His eyes looked wrong. Fear and love are enemies, and both were fighting inside me. "You're mine," he whispered. "Why can't you see that?" Something heavy snapped inside me, then not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like the breaking of a thin thread that had been holding everything together. His words didn't feel loving. They felt like a warning. You're mine, not I love you, not I care for you, but you're mine. Ownership is not love. Possession is not safety. He stood up and walked toward the living room, pacing, running his fingers through his hair, breathing heavily. I didn't move. I was frozen in place. My body felt small, fragile, breakable. Suddenly, he turned around and said something that shattered me completely. I gave you everything, and you still act like I'm the bad one. I lowered my head, tears falling silently. When I didn't respond, he exhaled sharply and stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door behind him. The echo filled the entire house, shaking the walls, shaking me. I sat there for what felt like hours. The food grew cold. The lights seemed too bright. The house felt too small. The air felt too heavy. And my heart, my poor, exhausted heart felt like it was begging me to save myself. For the first time in a long time, I listened. I stood up quietly. My legs were shaking. My hands were trembling. I grabbed my bag. I grabbed my phone. I grabbed my keys. I didn't take everything I owned, just the things that reminded me I was still a person, not a possession. When I reached the front door, I hesitated. Not because I wanted to stay, but because leaving felt like stepping into a world I no longer recognized. A world where I didn't have him to comfort me. A world where I didn't know who I was without the person who had once made me feel safe. Stepping into fear is sometimes easier than stepping into freedom. But I took a deep breath, placed my hand on the doorknob, and opened it. The cool night air hit my face like a new beginning. The world outside felt bigger than I remembered. The sky looked darker, but less threatening. The silence felt peaceful instead of suffocating. I stepped out as the door swung shut behind me. I heard his footsteps rushing toward it. He opened the door, eyes wide, panic flooding his face. Where are you going? He demanded that my heart hammered in my chest. He stepped closer, expression desperate, hands shaking not with sadness, but with fear of losing control. You can't leave. We're not done talking. I shook my head slowly. We're done hurting each other. He laughed bitterly, moving toward me, lowering his voice. You're overreacting. The favorite word of people who cause the pain they refuse to take responsibility for. I love you, he said urgently. Reaching for me, I stepped back. No, I whispered. You love the control. Not me. His face twisted. He reached out again, but this time I saw not love, not regret, not fear, but entitlement. He believed he owned my emotions, my choices, my voice, my safety. You're not leaving, he said harshly. For a second, I froze. Then something inside me rose, something strong, something fierce, something that had been silent for too long. Yes, I whispered. I am. He lunged forward as if to block me, but I slipped past him, stepping onto the sidewalk. His voice echoed behind me. Don't you dare walk away from me. I kept walking. He called my name again. The desperation in his voice was loud now, but behind it was something else. Fear of losing the control he thought he was entitled to. Fear of losing the version of me who obeyed him. Fear of losing the illusion he built. I didn't look back. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Every breath felt like freedom. Every tear felt like cleansing. He didn't chase me, not physically, but I heard his voice one last time, softer, breaking. You said I was your safe place. I stopped walking. Without turning around, I whispered. You were, until I realized safe places don't make you afraid. And with that, I kept walking toward a world where love wouldn't demand my fear, where safety wouldn't turn into control, where the person I trust wouldn't become the person I fear. He once felt like home. But homes don't cage you. Homes don't silence you. Homes don't shake when someone gets angry. Homes don't make you afraid to breathe. Sometimes, the person who becomes your safe place is also the person you must run from to stay alive. And that night, I chose survival. I chose myself.